All right, let's jump right into a really big question today. Is sociology actually a science? I mean, can you really study something as messy and complicated as human society in a scientific way? That's what we're going to figure out. I mean, think about it. It's easy to picture a scientist putting a cell under a microscope, right? Or mixing chemicals in a test tube. But human society? You've got emotions, free will, all this unpredictability. So, can we really study that with the same kind of rigor as, say, biology or chemistry? This is the huge debate at the heart of sociology, and we're going to unpack it.
Okay, so to even try and answer that, we need some kind of benchmark. And that's where the good old scientific method comes in. You know the drill. Define the problem, come up with a hypothesis, go out and collect data, and then finally develop a conclusion. This is pretty much the gold standard. So the real question becomes, can sociology actually follow these steps?
So, let's start with the yes camp. The people who are all in on sociology as a science. This whole school of thought is called positivism. And for them, the answer to our big question is a definite 100% yes. So, what's their big idea? Well, positivists argue that society is made up of what they call social facts. Think of them like social gravity. These are real, observable forces that shape our lives. They believe society isn't just a bunch of random chaos. It's got patterns, just like the natural world. And their whole goal is to measure these facts objectively, to find the hidden laws that govern how we all behave. Okay, but what does this actually look like in practice? Let's take maybe the most famous example ever, Emil Durkheim's study of suicide. I mean, what could possibly be a more personal individual act than that? But Durkheim was determined to prove that even this was really about powerful social forces at play.
So what did he do? He gathered a ton of official statistics from all over Europe, and bam, he found these really clear patterns. He wasn't just counting numbers, though. He was way smarter than that. He created these 4 distinct categories of suicide. And this is the key positivist move. He showed that suicide rates had less to do with what was going on inside someone's head and everything to do with how connected or disconnected they were from society. He was treating suicide like a measurable, predictable social fact.
Okay, that sounds pretty convincing, right? But it's not that simple, of course. There's a huge counterargument from a group called the interpretivists, and they basically looked at all this and said, whoa, not so fast.
For interpretivists, the big difference is this. People are not rocks or chemicals in a beaker. We have consciousness, right? We have feelings, we make choices, we attach meaning to things. And they argue that if you only look at the external facts, you miss the most important part of the story, the why. To really get what's going on, you have to dig into the subjective, personal meanings behind people's actions. And, this naturally leads to 2 totally different ways of doing sociology. The positivists, they want the big picture. They're looking at large-scale statistics, quantitative data, to find reliable patterns. The interpretivists, they go small. They prefer qualitative stuff, like in-depth interviews and observations, because they're chasing what they call validity, getting a really rich, truthful understanding of someone's experience. It really boils down to the difference between asking how many and asking why. So at the heart of it, the interpretivists are saying, look, you just can't create these ironclad scientific laws for human beings. Why? Because we're just too darn unpredictable. There are a million different things influencing our actions at any given moment, and you can't possibly control for all of them. So what does that unpredictability actually look like in the real world? Well, take a look at this number. 1 out of 53. Just sitting there. What on earth could that mean? Well, this comes from a social experiment in Sweden. They staged a domestic abuse scene in an elevator, and 53 people witnessed it. Only 1 person intervened. Now, a positivist might look at that and say, okay, that's an interesting statistic, let's find the pattern. But an interpretivist, they'd say the real story, the real sociology, is in understanding the 53 individual reasons. Why did that one hero step up? And what was going through the minds of the other 52 who didn't? That's the rich, messy, human detail they want to get at.
So we've got these 2 camps, right? Positivism and interpretivism, completely at odds. But does it have to be an either-or thing? Well, some really brilliant thinkers have come along and tried to bridge this gap, to find some kind of middle ground. And that brings us to Karl Popper, who totally changed the game. He basically flipped the whole definition of science on its head. He said, look, the sign of a real scientific theory isn't that you can prove it's true, it's that you can prove it's false. This idea is called falsification, and it's a huge deal. Popper had this great, simple way of explaining it.
Imagine your hypothesis is all swans are white. Simple enough. You could go out and see a million white swans, one after another, and every single one would seem to confirm your theory. You'd feel pretty confident, right?
But then you see one, just one single black swan. And in that instant, your entire theory is shattered. It's completely falsified. And for Popper, that's how real science works. It's not about proving yourself right over and over. It's about making big, bold claims and then doing everything you can to try and prove them wrong. His point was, if sociologists started making theories that could actually be tested and potentially proven false, then yeah, it could be a science.
Then there's Thomas Kuhn, who came at it from a totally different angle. He looked at mature sciences like physics or chemistry and noticed they all share one big thing, a single agreed-upon framework, a paradigm, he called it. Basically, all the physicists are playing the same game with the same set of rules. But then he looked at sociology, and he saw chaos. You've got Marxists, feminists, functionalists, all with their own competing theories. There's no single paradigm. So Kuhn called sociology pre-paradigmatic. It's not that it couldn't be a science, it's just that it wasn't there yet.
Okay, this brings us to a really smart take from the realist perspective. They say we're thinking about science all wrong. There are two types. You have closed systems, like a chemistry lab where you can control every little variable. But you also have open systems where you absolutely can't. And their killer example? Meteorology. A weather forecaster can't control the wind or the temperature, right? But by observing all the complex, chaotic variables, they can still identify patterns and make some pretty solid scientific predictions. Realists say that's sociology. It's a science, just an open system science. But just when it feels like we might be settling on an answer, along comes one last perspective to basically throw a wrench in the whole machine and question the entire debate itself.
These are the postmodernists, and they look at our wild, complicated modern world and say that this whole quest to find one single grand scientific truth about society is just pointless. They call these big, all-encompassing theories meta-narratives, or big stories. And they argue that science is just another one of these big stories, one that pretends to have all the answers while totally ignoring how diverse and chaotic human life really is.
Which leads them to ask a really pointed question. Why is sociology so obsessed with being called a science anyway? Is it just for the prestige, to get more funding? Postmodernists suggest that maybe, just maybe, sociology should stop having this physics envy and start embracing what makes it unique, its ability to help us understand our messy, fragmented world. And that leaves us right here with a final, really important thought. We came into this asking, can sociology be a science? But maybe, after all this, the more important question is, should it even try to be? At the end of the day, what's the goal? Is it to find universal scientific laws that govern all of us? Or is it to achieve a deeper, richer, more empathetic understanding of all the millions of different ways there are to be human? Now that's a question to chew on.